If you had to choose between your gut, your team, and an AI that reads the news 24/7, who gets to call next month's forecast? There's a new arena testing AI on the real questions with unknown outcomes. Think of it as a life experiment, not a proof. Today I'll show you what it is, why benchmarks are changing, and how this could shape your planning. This is V. Welcome to your Agentic Lab. First, a quick intro into the AI benchmarks. Benchmark is a standardized test for models. Benchmarks are basically exams for AI. They ask, can this model summarize, translate, pass knowledge, quiz, write code? The scores go on the leaderboards, and usually the higher scores means better results. You can find various benchmarks on their respective websites, and then there are other websites like Epoch AI that summarizes and puts them all in one place. Let's have a look at Epoch AI and have a look at different benchmarks. Here on the screen, on the right-hand side, you can select different benchmarks, such as Frontier Math. You could see how different models compare. In this case, GPT-5 comes on top by achieving quite high accuracy on the back of it there. You can see that other models like Grok 4, Claude, Opus are somewhat behind. You can also see how the results of the models evolved over a period of time, how over the last several years, models perform better and better and better. On the right-hand side, you can select other models. There's Ada Polyglot that's famous for its coding challenges. And again, you can see different models perform differently. There's many more to pick from. Pretty much whichever benchmark you pick, you'll find that the models tend to perform better and better over time. So what's the issue with the benchmarks? Well, the business reality changes daily, and these classic benchmarks, they don't. They usually stay the same over a period of time. And as a result, these benchmarks, they often go stale. Yesterday's questions don't reflect today's context. These benchmarks also leaky. These exam questions used on these exams, on these tests, they on the internet, like what you saw. And the models often see them when being trained, which means that the results and the questions end up in the model itself. And these benchmarks, they're gameable. Many AI companies now tune for the tests without building a real-world judgment into the models. In other words, they validate that their models perform well on the benchmarks rather than focusing on the real world. But your business case is less about the perfect score on 2022 quiz and more about today's call on the messy moving data that we all have. That data could be involving pricing, supply risks, platform policy, regulation. And that's why people exploring live tests where the results are not known yet, where there's no spoilers, where you can't fine-tune your model to a particular result. Let's talk about a prediction or betting market. A prediction market is a place where people buy and sell tiny shares in an outcome. For example, will the interest rates drop this quarter? If that share trades at 65 pence, the market is effectively saying that there is about 65% chance of interest changes. Prices move up and down as new information emerges, like stocks. Let's have a look on one of the common markets. In this case, I'll use a poly market. Over here, if I quickly come out into the trending news, you could see all sorts of different trending results that currently people are betting. Let's pick the one presidential election winner 2028. Here you could see people betting on J.D. Vance being most likely candidate with a chance about 1 in 4. I could say, yes, I would like to bet on that being as a president. What would that mean? This means I could bet $100 on this outcome. And with the current chances, my winnings would be $370 if he were to become a president. Equally, I could bet against it. And since that's a chance different, I would only win about $35 on $100 that I win. Now you could see how the results change over time. And this could be covering all sorts of different results, such as wars, Nobel Prizes, major events, discoveries, and so on. Why does this matter? Well, the market forces participants to put something on the line: money, reputation, track record. That pressure often compresses messy opinions into a clear probability that you can use alongside of your own judgment. It's important to know this is not about the gambling, and you don't need to bet on anything. You could use these chances and the information that people collect, and you could already use that as a signal for your own decision-making in your own business. Markets, they're not magic. They can be wrong, but it's a live updating information, and it shows a collective belief of thousands, sometimes millions of people collecting that information and taking bets. So imagine this. Imagine if we ask AI to do these bets. How would the AI compare to the benchmark? That's where Profit Arena comes in. It's a new life experimental benchmark in AI judgment. It's a public experiment that asks AI to estimate the chances of unresolved real-world events, outcomes that will only be known later. When the event resolves, their forecasts are scored. It's a less can you memorize, like the way the normal benchmarks work, and more can you weigh uncertainty sensibly? Let's have a look at Profit Arena website and dive deeper on how it works. Here's the simple version of the Profit Arena using the diagram. Think of it as a life experiment where AIs make probability calls on a real-world questions, and then those calls are checked once reality arrives. Step 1 starts with the market. Using platforms such as Polymarket or Kalshi and the others, the researchers collect information on various types of events and the outcomes predicted, as well as the prices being gathered there. These prediction events are gathered and then passed to collect additional information with AI. All sorts of different information sources and market data, insights and opinions are gathered together into an information pack, which is then passed to the agents. It's different types of agents available, that those that do reasoning, agentic, as well as the tool use. Researchers focus that it's the popular and diverse events, as well as the events that recur and they recur frequently, like weekly, for example, are published and scored by AI. So it's a less about those longer-term events. The models make a call, make a judgment about a chance of an event happening, which is then recorded for a comparison. Once the event resolved itself, it passed to a scoring metric, and then the models are being scored next to each other in a ranking table. So what do the results look like? One of the first is the Bria score, and that's how accurate the models are. You could see a typical benchmark of the humans, which is right here. So the humans score at 79.55%, and that's the baseline. That's what the markets are. You can see AI models often achieve better results. Not all of them. Surprise to me was the DeepSeek R1 is by far one of the worst performing ones, but many others, GPT-5, O3 and the others, score on top. Researchers also produce a different ranking, and that's the average return on the investment, which is with the market baseline scoring at 84%. Other AI score significantly higher. Curious to me was that GPT-5 does worse on the market return compared to O3 Mini, but O3 Mini, despite the fact of having a worse results here on this benchmark, actually produce results. And that's because different models have different personalities, different attitude to risk, different way of reasoning, which leads to different results. What does this mean to you? You can implement it already now within your own business. You can pick 3 live questions that affect your next 30 or 60 days and build queries around that will do the research, will monitor information and set a prediction. You can take that prediction, you can check what your team thinks a likely outcome to be on those events, or even individual scores, and compare how your team can perform against the AI. AI can typically provide some reasoning about why a particular score was selected. You could gather the information on the decision making done by your team and the AI and compare those based on the outcome that actually achieved on the event. Different scenarios that you can implement now. You can get AI to monitor a likelihood of your suppliers not delivering on a contract based on the conditions in particular regions, starting from weather to political situation to various other escalations, as well as reporting by your critical suppliers or customers. AI can be constantly online, monitoring feeds, monitoring reports, weather conditions, and geopolitics. Here's the quick demo of me doing exactly that with the GPT-5 on the event that we just discussed on the Polymarket, the likelihood of J.D. Vance becoming a president. I asked GPT-5 not to use the betting market as a source, as I didn't want to just use those figures and arrive on them. I asked it to do a deep search online and gather all the additional information. I did not ask it to focus on J.D. Vance, but ask it to suggest a likely winner of the US elections in 2028. After a few clarification questions, GPT-5 worked for 11 minutes, analyzed 21 sources, and did 57 searches online. As a result, it produced an in-depth report that you see over here with a lot of information being included with various figures, poll tests, results, you name it, it's all there. And it also provided some conclusions on who is likely to be nominated and win. I then did what the researchers did in their paper. I asked AI to review the results and give me a single percentage estimate on who the top candidate likely to be and what's their probability of winning. The AI at the end provided me an answer that it's J.D. Vance at 38%, which is interesting because the poly market at the moment is estimating it as 27%. So GPT-5 in this case is 11% more confident that J.D. Vance likely to be the next US president compared to the poly market estimate at the moment. And AI also provided to me some of the reasoning why it thinks to be the case. Couple warnings. This is just a forecast and in many ways a speculation. Unlike weather, it's likely to change over a period of time. Avoid cherry-picking the results and avoid sticking to your own bias. Let the AI do the work, do your own estimate and research, and compare the contrast to understand why there is a difference between your opinion or the opinion of your team. This forecasting method is very new, and it's more of a craft than a science in this case. But nevertheless, after doing this for several months, perhaps a year, it's no doubt likely to improve your own decision making and your own forecasting ability. Because as the benchmark shows, GPT-5 and o3 outperform the crowd wisdom. So if your world is full of maybes, this approach could turn some of the maybes into the manageables. It will hopefully help you to make some clearer calls earlier and with less drama. So what do you think? Would you trust AI to make predictions? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video and you like the practical, risk-aware AI for real business, hit the like and subscribe. If you'd like to know how to improve your team's decision-making, consider watching this video over here, Would AI Make Your Team Stupid?, where I discuss the dangers of over-relying on AI and the 5 strategies to improve your decision-making. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.